Good morning all. This video, as I promised, is back to tutorial requests, and this one comes from the user Tyrone Jackson, and it is how to implement the time travel mechanic from Braid. If you're not familiar with Braid, I advise you to go YouTube it. But it's a puzzle game where you can rewind time. So the idea is that you can jump over, you can fall down. You can fall down a hole or go down some kind of impossible path to collect something. Apologies, my voice, it's a bit early in the morning. And then you can rewind time. As always, you'll find a link below to the scene that I'm about to show you, and this is it. So if I hit play, you've got our little platform character, and oh, that didn't work well. But he's trapped now. Imagine if that coin was collectible. I couldn't be bothered to make it collect. We can't get out. Well, except if we press the R key, we rewind. Oh. We only store a certain amount of time, and I guess I faffed around there a bit too long. But look, so we can jump over, and if I press R, we jump back. So if I fall down and pick up the coin, I can then go back up. I'll explain what just happened then and why it just happened in a very hot second. So this is kind of fun. Oh, that is interesting. Huh, hadn't seen that one happen before. So I guess it's not perfect, but the implementation does work. And this is literally it. A player that animates floors, a tiled sprite, a coin, and a back button. And the events are very simple. So these animate, record, and replay are all behaviors. So they're custom actions. And then, if the R key isn't pressed, I hide the back button. If the R key is pressed, I show the back button. Also, when the R key isn't pressed, we animate and record the player. When the R key is pressed, we just replay the player. Sounds nice, right? Let's go into it. So I created a... No, that's not what I want to do. So I created a function called game, a behavior called game, and I created a couple of functions over here. One is called animate, one is called recorder, one is called replayer. Animate is basically as it sounds. It takes a player, and the player has a platform character, and it just handles all the player animations. And this is a nice, easy way of tucking it and hiding it away. The real magic comes in recorder, and if I could just click on the right thing this morning, replayer. So the basic principle is, well, firstly, we're dealing with code because, and what's interesting about this one is, I remember when I first saw the request, I wrote it down in my spreadsheet where I write down all requests, and I was like, I'd know how to do this in code, I wouldn't know how to do this in GDevelop as right now, and I guess it's an interesting learning experience because I now know how to do in GDevelop. It happens to also be in code. If you're not familiar with JavaScript, I will link, or if all of this looks very scary to you, I will link my JavaScript tutorial down below, and maybe I'll give a bit more context. But this is how it works. So this first line here, events function context, this basically allows you to get this object, which I use as the player. I should also add, the way I've written this is it's not tied just to player. You could attach it to enemies, you could attach it to anything moving, anything with a position, and it would record where it is. So you can expand it very easily. But anyway, so this events function context, what it does is get whatever you put in there, so player or whatever you add in. And we try to get on the player this variable called record data. Now, you'll notice that we haven't actually set up an object variable called record data, and that's fine, because you can actually, what we do here is we detect if data is literally the string 0, we just set it to an array, and array are the squared brackets, and if you're not familiar with that, again, the tutorial I'm going to link below about JavaScript will help you understand. So basically, what we're setting up here is an array to hold our data. And what we're doing is every frame, and so I called it frame, we store 4 pieces of information. We store the x position of the object, the y position, the animation name, so the current animation name of a sprite, and animation frame. If you're like me, you just realize there's a small bug in that this expects it to be a sprite, but the object type here is any. So if you try putting in anything other than a sprite, it would currently error out, but that can be changed. So yeah, we store where is its X position, where is its Y position, what animation is currently playing, and what frame of the animation is playing. We also, if we happen to be idling, we just exit out. I found in testing, it's very boring if you've been standing around for a second or so, and then you try rewinding and you're still standing around. You just kind of want to rewind the last action. So we don't store stationary frames. So we have our frame. Dot push adds this data to the end of the array. So the start of the array is always going to be the oldest information, and the end is always going to be the newest, as new data always gets put into the end. And then in order to keep from our array just growing unbounded, we put a cap on it. And so if the length of the array is greater than 150, what shift does is it removes the first element from the array. So basically, if it gets too long, we just pull out the oldest thing and we just keep doing that. So our length is always set. Now this number 150 is just purely arbitrary. And so what you saw happen earlier is I was standing down in the hole for too long, and so actually the oldest data, the ones where I was jumping back out of the hole, they'd disappeared already. They'd been lost. And then finally what we do is we set the variable on the object record data as a string. And because JavaScript and GDevelop is nice, we don't actually have to, that's why we don't have to actually put it on the object itself. It's fine to leave this code totally blank and just in the code say, get me something that doesn't exist. Oh, if it doesn't exist, fine, I will just set it myself. So that's how we record data. We have this array of frames, we push new ones to the end, and we pull old ones off the start. What's replaying? Well, basically, we have our data, well, we just pull it off the end. We want to, as I said, oldest at the start, newest at the end. We just want to play it from the newest back to the oldest. So here we do exactly the same thing. We grab the whatever is passed in, which again is player over here. We grab its data, and if the data is either an empty array because we've used up, we've literally removed everything that was in it, or if the data equals the string 0 because there's nothing in it, we'll just return. We just don't do anything. So what we do then is pop. So you've seen push, which adds it to the end. You've seen shift, which removes it from the beginning. Well, pop removes it from the end. And so what this does is it always gets us the newest / last frame in the array, and then all we do is we apply it to the player. We set its X position to what it said, we set its Y position to what it said, we set its animation name, and we set its animation frame. Then we reset what the record data is. I should add push, pop, and shift. They all take it out and return it. So they give it back to the code, but they actually change the array underneath, which is why doing this works. And that's it. That is what happens. So as we are playing right now, and actually, let me make just a very small change so you can see what's coming on. So I'm going to say console.log data.length. So what that's going to do is it's going to print out how long the array is there. And I'm going to say console.log data.length there. And this will give you a nice visual indication of what's going on. So if I open up the console here, and let's restart it. Oh, there's no easy way to do this. So as we're moving, so notice that the number doesn't go up as we're standing still because we're ignoring stationary frames. But as we move, we're recording it. And you notice that it's stopping at 150 because whenever we get over 150, we take the oldest one off and discard it. Now when I press R, you see that number going down because we're literally pulling the newest frame off. And that's what happens. And obviously the reason, it's not perfect, as I said. Like, for example, after doing a bit of running around, the reason why even when we get to 0, he's still running, is because that's the last frame that we saw, basically. That's the last animation that we saw, so run is set to autoplay. And so that's it. Oh, get me out of here. No, apparently I didn't record enough data for that. But there you go. A nice challenge that I thought was impossibly difficult, or I'm sure could be done, but I didn't know how to do it, and I now know how to do it. And it's kind of fun. I hope that's of interest to you. As always, if you have a question or suggestion for a tutorial or some kind of thing, please leave it in the comments. And I will see you all at the next one.